How's it going, everybody? I am ZBilbs and I'm back here today with another metal albums ranked video. Today I've got another classic metal band for you, and that is Candlemass. These guys arguably created doom metal, although Black Sabbath really did, but these guys kind of set the benchmark for the subgenre in general, and they definitely created epic doom metal. So these guys are a big deal. And I've really enjoyed diving through their discography. But yeah, without further ado, let's just jump into my list. And I'd like to say, although first, there are no bad albums in here. This is one of the most consistent bands that I have ranked or listened to and am going to rank. Every album is interesting for some sort of reason or another, so it's very hard. But yeah, something's got to come in last place. And so in 13th place, I have got From the 13th Sun. Very fitting, I suppose, the 13. Now, this is one of the two albums that was done under, like, not exactly the Candlemass name. It was done under, like, the Abstract Algebra, the side project that the main guy of the band did. And while the other one, which is on here a little higher, I enjoyed quite a bit. This is the one album where I'm like, there's a couple of good stuff here, but it's just kind of too weird for me to really get into it. It's definitely, apparently it was like influenced a lot of these riffs and styles by Black Sabbath, and there is a lot of good riffs in here, but it also is a little bit out there in terms of style. It goes for this weird kind of cosmic, I don't know, digital techno cyberpunk style that is just a little bit too weird and different for me to really enjoy it. There's only a couple songs that really stick with me. The rest of them are just kind of just too weird, not exactly my thing. The one really solid song from this album is definitely, I think, the opener track, Droid. That one is really excellent. Other decent ones, Tot, Bluma, Apt, and Galatea are all decent songs. The singer, just like in Dactylus, is really good. They've had 5 singers, and there's not a single bad one. It's just hard. It goes from good to great as far as their singers go. And honestly, he's really solid in this album. So while I don't love the style, and there's only a handful of songs that I'd really re-listen to, overall, it's still not a bad album. There's stuff to like about it, but some had to come in last place, and that is definitely this one. Moving on to number 12, I have Chapter 6, which is actually their 5th studio album, but I guess they counted their live album, so kind of weird. This album sees the departure of Messiah Marcolin in favor of this guy, if I put it over there, who I'd say he's probably their weakest singer, which isn't saying much because all the singers are solid, and overall I'd say he's still a good singer, but coming off the heels of Messiah, it's definitely a hard act to follow, and I think that does make it a little bit difficult when you're comparing, but overall, the main problem of this album doesn't come from the singer itself. It just comes from just the lack of originality and innovation in these songs. There's a lot of like good songs. There's just not a lot that really stick with you. There's not too many like really catchy, doomy riffs here and there. Some good songs, The Dying Illusion, Where the Runes Still Speak, The Temple of the Dead, Black Eyes is probably my favorite, and The End of Pain are all solid songs. But there's nothing exactly, with maybe an exception of Black Eyes, that really sticks with me. So a little bit lack of originality and ingenuity, but overall still not a bad album, but not a great one either. So that is Chapter 6 at number 12. Moving on to number 11, I have one of the more recent albums, The Door to Doom. Now, this album is the first one that saw the return of the original singer from Epicus Doomicus, I believe Johan Langvist or something like that. And Honestly, this is probably not an unpopular opinion. I think his voice has dropped off heavily since the first album. I thought he was amazing in Epicus, but I thought the three albums with Rob Lowe right before him were a leaps and bounds better in terms of vocal quality. Now, that's not saying that he has a bad voice, just that I think compared to Rob Lowe, he pales in comparison. I think he's gotten a little too old. I kind of wish they would have stayed with Rob Lowe, and not that Rob Lowe, obviously, but um, but you know, once again, just like the other guy from Chapter 6, it's good enough. It's serviceable, and there's still good songs in here. The best ones: Splendor, Demon Majesty, Astralis, The Great Octopus, the Omega Circle, and also the House of Doom is decent. But once again, I think this album is a little spotty. It's definitely got those classic chunky Doom riffs, but there's very few that I think are really interesting besides the ones in the songs I've just mentioned. So overall, well, I think it's a serviceable enough album. Stuff like once again the lack of a solid amount of really interesting songs, and also the dip in the quality when it comes to the singer, does make this for an album that's good, but stacks in at the lower end when it comes to Candlemass. So moving on to number 10, I have got Dactylis glomerata. This is one that's usually the last or the second to last, usually with From the 13th Sun, but I actually have a decent soft spot for this album. For one, it does have the originality that ones like The Door to Doom and Chapter 6 didn't. Even though a lot of people don't like it because they think it's too different of the style from Candlemass, for me, From the 13th Sun was a bit too different of a style, whereas this one, it just felt a lot more like kind of muffled or kind of lo-fi, if that makes sense to it, but it still sounds very much doom metal. There is a lot of very distinct, deep, chuggy riffs that I think do work with Candlemass. And even despite the fact, like whether or not it works with Candlemass, I still think this is just a pretty solid album on its own. Some of the better songs, Wiz, I Still See the Black, Dust Flow, Carthago, Little Cane God, are all really interesting songs. Once again, it's a little bit weird. It tries to do some weird proggy stuff here and there, and it's not exactly the most consistent in quality. But overall, there's definitely, I think there are worse Candlemass albums. There's a lot of really interesting, good stuff that I actually come back to from this album. So, not bad at all. So that's Dactylis glomerata at number 10. All right, moving on to number 9. This is where, from here on up, I think every album is really good, if not great. So it's really hard to put some of these as low as I do put them, but at 9, I have the title album, the band title album, Candlemass. Now this one was after the Dactylis From the 13th Sun era, and saw a return of Messiah Marcolin. And excellent return. This guy, unlike Johan Langvist, whose voice dropped off big time, this guy sounds just as good as he did on the 3 that he did in the 80s. And once again, this is a really solid album. Some of the better songs: Black Dwarf is a masterpiece. 7 Silver Keys, Copernicus, Man Who Fell From the Sky is a decent instrumental. Witches and Born in a Tank. So there's a solid handful of really solid songs on there. Now, it doesn't quite reach the heights of the first 3 Messiah albums, and I think it doesn't have anything to do with the vocals. I think there is, once again, just like some of the lower albums, there's a little bit of a lack of originality. A couple of the songs here and there kind of feel like been there, done that. A little bit lack of an interesting riff, once again. So overall, while this is a good album and I really enjoy the return of Messiah for this album, there's nothing quite as interesting besides Black Dwarf that is really one that like stick with me and be like, okay, this is like an all-time great Messiah Candlemass song. But once again, still a really solid album in its own right, just not quite up there with the big dogs. So moving on, number 8, I have Sweet Evil Son, most recent Candlemass album. And this is another by Johan Langvist. And actually, I harped on his vocals for Door to Doom. I think, well, and he not necessarily has gotten better as a singer since Door to Doom. I think they utilize his vocals in this album in a little bit better of a way, where, I don't know, the songs that they use his vocals in are just work a little bit better with his age and just his quality of vocals. They do different styles, and the styles that they use him in are just good. And like pretty much just overall, the vocals, while not as good as Rob Lowe's, they're pretty decent in this album. And once again, I think that this just has a more original, more diverse style than the Door to Doom has. It still has those nice chunky riffs to it, but it just has just more interesting songs in it than the Door to Doom. So it overall just makes it, I think, a better album overall. Some of the better songs, Sweet Evil Son, the title track is great. Love that song. Angel Battle, When Death Sighs, Scandinavian Gods, Devil Voodoo, Crucified. So a lot of really solid songs. There's a handful of kind of just meh, just boring songs here and there, which is why it's not too high. Also, once again, Johan, while I think his vocals are utilized better, they're definitely not on the same quality as Rob Lowe and Messiah, which is a big detractor for me, because I do really like a good Candlemass vocals here and there, and just metal vocals in general I really enjoy. But overall, pretty solid album. All right, on to number 7. I have Ancient Dreams. This is the 3rd Candlemass album overall, and the 2nd with Messiah Marcolin. This is probably a little low for most people. I think it is, out of the first 3 Messiah albums, it is the weakest by a decent amount. Not to say it's a bad album, I just think it lacks a consistent quality throughout. Most of the songs are decent, but the ones they are just decent, whereas the other 2, Nightfall and Tales of Creation, have just consistently great songs throughout. For this album, the one absolutely fantastic song in here is Mirror Mirror. The riff in that might be the best Candlemass riff just overall. Other good ones, A Cry from the Crypt, Darkness in Paradise, Bearer of Pain, The Bells of Acheron, Ancient Dreams I also think is great. That's probably my 2nd favorite on the album. But most of those songs are just like solid, like decent Candlemass songs. Nothing extraordinary besides Mirror Mirror. So overall, still a good album, a consistent album, just lacks those high of highs that other Messiah and other Candlemass albums have. Moving on to number 6, I have my first of Rob Lowe Candlemass album, and that is Death Magic Doom. Now, I've already alluded to that I really enjoy Rob Lowe singing, and that's absolutely true. That's probably the main reason why I have his album so high, is because I think it's close between him and Messiah as to which is my favorite Candlemass singer. They're both fantastic, but once again, I love Rob Lowe's vocals. They just work so well with these riffs, and they're just beautiful and great in general. And so once again, this is a good album just off the bat from that. And just like his other 2 albums, this has just a lot of good solid songs, a lot of good riffs, great vocals. Yeah, some of the best songs. If I Ever Die is probably the best on the album, maybe 2nd best. The other really great one is The Bleeding Baroness. Hammer of Doom is solid. A nice, slow, deep build-up of a song. Demon of the Deep, House of a Thousand Voices, Dead Angel. There is a couple of kind of iffy skip songs, and there's only 2 like great songs in this album, which is why it's not any higher. But you know, love Rob Lowe, love the style of this album, so really good. That's Death Magic Doom at 6. Next up at number 5, another Rob Lowe album, and I have got King of the Grey Islands. This one and the next one are so close, but you know, something had to come here. Just like with Death Magic Doom, Rob Lowe is great. Riffs are great, consistent in quality, and this one is just a little bit better than that one, and not quite as good as the next, obviously. Some of the better songs, Emperor of the Void is a great way to start it. Devil Seed is also great. Of Stars and Smoke is fantastic. One of my favorite Candlemass songs overall. I love the main chorus of that. Man of Shadows is solid. Clear Sight is great. Embracing the Sticks is great. So really consistent. I think there's like 2 songs that I skip, which is, I think, the difference between this one and the next one is that I think the next one has just one more song that I like overall, or maybe just a little bit better quality overall. I don't know. It's close. It's hard to tell, but yeah, that is King of the Grey Islands at number 5. On to 4, the last Rob Lowe. I also already alluded to that, and that is Psalms for the Dead. Now, looking at my list, it looks like it has about the same quality as King of the Grey Islands. Those two are so unbelievably close. But I think just the consistency of the songs is a little bit higher. There's a little bit more great songs than King of the Grey Islands, but they're both great. Some of the good songs, Prophet is excellent. The Sound of Dying Demons, excellent. Psalms for the Dead is probably my favorite in the album, the title track. Killing of the Sun is excellent. The Lights of Thebe is great. Black as Time, man, that would be a masterpiece if they didn't have that long spoken word section on it. But overall, still a great album. And yeah, so very close. But from here at number 4 on, the Rob Lowe ones are all really close like that. These 3 and up is a decent step ahead. But yeah, that is Psalms for the Dead at number 4. All right, now we're getting into the real classics, because at number 3, I have got Tales of Creation. Now, usually this one and Ancient Dreams are kind of flip-flopped as to which one people like more, and I think that Tales of Creation is a significant step higher, as per why Ancient Dreams is still down a decent chunk. Honestly, this one and the next one are both really close, but yeah, Tales of Creation, once again, this is another with just Messiah at his best, just the classic, fantastic, chuggy Candlemass riffs. Almost every song is great, and the songs that are great are some of the best Candlemass songs overall. So let's just list them off. Dark Reflections, great way to start the album. Tears is fantastic. Into the Unfathomed Tower, this is like the only Candlemass song that is just like one giant fast-paced guitar solo, and it's also absolutely fantastic. It's like the Candlemass take on Eruption in a certain way. Yeah, it's great. Through the Infinitive Halls of Death, great. A Tale of Creation is also great. So there's a couple of songs I don't love, but the songs that I do like, every single one is absolutely fantastic. So makes Tales of Creation definitely a top tier Candlemass album overall. And ahead of it, just by a teeny bit, I have got Nightfall at number 2. Now this is one of the 2 classic Candlemass albums. It's this one and the next one almost everybody considers like some of the best doom metal albums of all time, and usually the best Candlemass albums. Usually when it comes to obvious opinions like that, I usually have different opinions than what everyone else has because I'm weird, but in this case I definitely agree with the consensus that Nightfall is one of the best Candlemass albums, the 1 or 2, and I think it's just under this next one. But yeah, everything can be said about the Messiah albums overall can be said about this one. Consistent in quality. Messiah is fantastic. Some of the best riffs in all of Candlemass. Yeah. The songs on this one, The Well of Souls, At the Gallows End is probably the best Messiah song just overall. Samaritan, it's spelled like Samaritan. I have no idea if it's pronounced like that. Dark Are the Veils of Death, Mourner's Lament, Bewitched is another classic. I mean, they're all classics in their own right. This one, honestly, it could have been number one if it weren't for the fact that it doesn't have my favorite Candlemass song of all time that's on this next one. And also the short little mini instrumentals that break up the songs, I could have done without. But once again, just a very minor nitpick, and this is still a great album, classic album. So that is Nightfall at number 2. And lastly, at number 1, you know it, I know it, it's Epicus Doomicus Metallicus. Gotta be one of the best names for an album of all time. But besides the name, this album, it's short, but every single song is good. And it set the benchmark for doom metal. It's great. For me, half of these songs are just good, like solid songs, and the other half are amazing, fantastic, some of the best doom metal songs ever made, genuinely. So Crystal Ball, Demon's Gate, and Black Stone Wielder are all like good, solid songs. But then you've got frickin' Solitude, A Sorcerer's Pledge, and my favorite Candlemass song of all time, frickin' Under the Oak. Love Under the Oak. They also, on Tales of Creation, I forgot to mention this, they did a new version of that. That's another good one on Tales of Creation, but I like this one better, so I just didn't mention it there. But Under the Oak, fantastic. Solitude, like, literally amazing Candlemass songs. So just the fact that, the songs on here are so freaking good. There are no bad songs. It's short, but it's concise. You can just pop this album in, just listen to it all the way through and just be like, yes, that is just pure essence of doom metal. So, it's hard to argue that this truly is the best Candlemass album, and probably one of the best doom metal, if not metal albums of all time. But yeah, that is my list for the 13 Candlemass albums ranked from worst to best. So let me know in the comments, how did you agree with my list? How much did you disagree with it? If you did, comment your own Candlemass albums ranked lists in the comments, and let me know what other videos you'd like me to do in the future. But that is all I've got for you today, so I will see you later.